Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Financing Philadelphia's Future, our series of fast-paced Zoom discussions about Philadelphia's problems and ideas for solutions viewed through the lens of finance, and in particular, the potential for a Philadelphia public bank. Financing Philadelphia's Future is presented by the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition. My name is Peter Winslow. I'm your host today, filling in for Vanessa Lowe. Our guest today is real estate developer and Jumpstart founder, Ken Weinstein. Before introducing Ken, however, I need to attend to a few housekeeping matters. We suggest that you use Speaker View, which can be selected by using the icon at the top right corner of your screen. Please enter your questions and comments in the chat. Our chat monitor today is Connie Belay, who's being assisted by Stan Shapiro. We'll try to address all the chat input later in the show, trying as best we can to include as much as possible in the time that's available to us, because this is a really fast show. If you're not already a member of the Public Banking Forum, please enter your contact information in the chat, and we will add you to the PPBC mailing list for notifications and ongoing discussions of subjects of interest to you. At the end of the program, we suggest you save the chat using the Save Chat feature that's found at the three dots at the bottom of the chat window. This program is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the PPBC website, philapublicbanking.org, and on YouTube. So without any further housekeeping responsibilities, I'm happy to introduce Ken Weinstein. And Ken, the way in which we go about doing this is to let our guests introduce themselves. So take it away.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Peter. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking more about what I do, including the Jumpstart program, which I'm very proud of. But I'm Ken Weinstein. I am president of Philly Office Retail. I've been doing adaptive reuse, revitalization of our communities for the past 37 years. I got into this in the mid-late 80s and started to renovate vacant, blighted houses in Northwest Philadelphia. And 10 years later, moved on to doing the same thing with mixed use and commercial properties. So we are a mission-based real estate developer. While I have no problems with new construction, we try to focus on the revitalization of existing properties before we get into new construction of properties. So I'm also, as Peter alluded to, the founder of a program called Jumpstart Germantown, Jumpstart Philly. We train, mentor, network, and loan money to aspiring real estate developers. In a sense, what we're doing is helping local residents get into real estate development rather than just waiting for folks from the outside to invest in their community. They can have a hand in investing in their own community and thereby remove blight and improve their own communities. So the idea has been so popular that when we started it in Germantown 8 years ago, other communities started to contact us and asked whether we would share our curriculum and our program with them. And we have done that, and we are now in 15 communities throughout Philadelphia, throughout our region, and it's now growing nationally. So as an example, we were just told last week that Jumpstart Newark, New Jersey will be starting in January, and Jumpstart Tulsa, Oklahoma will also be starting early next year. So very excited about the possibilities, and people have clearly seen the Jumpstart program as something that can be used, a tool in their belt, so to speak, that can be used for improving their own community. So let me move on, Peter, and look forward to your questions and other questions too.
Thanks, Ken. And we want to drill down into Jumpstart and adaptive reuse and the needs that Philadelphia has for housing in general, especially affordable housing. But before we get into that, of particular interest to our group, because we are in fact the Public Banking Coalition, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the experience that you had forming a bank, starting a bank, founding a bank, running a bank, and being on the loan committee of the Valley Green Bank, and get the benefit of some of your experience and what you've learned through having done that. Let me start by saying that was it a very different experience for you being on the other side of the table from being the person coming to the bank looking for a loan to being the person at the bank giving out the loan?
Yeah, very much. And sorry, I forgot to mention that in my intro, that I am a founder and organizer of Valley Green Bank, which was based here in Mount Airy. What happened several years ago was that we wanted to grow the Mount Airy business corridor into something better. And we decided one of the ingredients that we were missing was a community bank. So several of us based here in Mount Airy got together and did exactly that. I knew nothing about banking, but fortunately there were members of our team that knew a whole lot more than I did. But yeah, it was an incredible growth period for me personally. We ran and operated Valley Green Bank for 8 years. And yeah, it was very different sitting on the other side of the table because for years, I didn't understand why loan officers and bankers would put certain requirements on us. And it made a lot more sense when I was sitting on the other side of the table, either at the board level or the loan committee level of Valley Green Bank. And it went very well. We started it in '07. A couple years before the recession hit, and that actually helped us because we didn't have a chance to make bad loans early in our existence. We did sell the bank 8 years later to Univest, which continues to run the 4 branches that we started.
So, Ken, as a group that is interested in starting a public bank in Philadelphia, we know that this is a big lift. It's a big lift all across the country. The only public bank that's been in existence for a long time and is currently operating extraordinarily well is the Bank of North Dakota, founded in 1919. And some anomalous situations that exist now with tribal banks and the Territorial Bank of American Samoa. But it's a big lift to create a public bank. What was it like for you to create a private bank? How long did it take? How difficult was it working with your attorneys and the regulators and so on?
Yeah, my memory was it took about 1.5 years to get it off the ground. And you hit it on the head. One of the hardest things and certainly most timely issues was actually getting it chartered, which is a long legal process. The raising of money was relatively easy. I think we were out in the market for 2 weeks and raised about $10 million in order to get it started. So that was the easy part. The hard part was all the regulations and the regulators attached to those rules. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not an easy lift. And it's certainly if you need some expertise in order to make it work.
So you got your charter from the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities.
Correct.
Did you find them good people to be working with?
Yeah, my memory was I was not working with them directly. That was not why they brought me on board to work with the regulators. But very timely. I think in general we'd like to see it not take as long as it does, but it was a fair process, and we worked our way through it and very thorough and looked into the backgrounds of everybody who was a founder, a board member, and that took a long time.
Was Valley Green a member of the Federal Reserve
Yeah, FDIC insured, yes.
and FDIC insured? Was that a difficult process, or one that just was a question of going through the numbers?
Yeah, I think that was an easier process for my memory of it.
Great. So let's go to your experience as a loan, being on the loan committee of the bank, where you reviewed decisions that were made by the staff. Uh, what was your takeaway from that in terms of things that you have taken with you, maybe changed your own practices or the way in which you set up Jumpstart?
Yeah, I would say more so what I learned being on the loan committee are things that I now share with my Jumpstarters because there are things that I didn't understand before. For example, a loan officer might say that they can't loan you money and they might give you reasons that don't make sense. And it became more obvious to me being on the loan committee that even though the bank wants to make the loan, a lot of the decisions are being made by the regulators, meaning that even if a bank wants to loan to customers who don't have real estate development experience, they can't do it because a lot of the regulators come in once a year. They look at files on all of the borrowers. And if that borrower doesn't have good credit, if that borrower doesn't have good experience, the regulators come down on you and give you warnings. And you don't want to be a B or C rated bank. You strive to be an A rated bank, and they're not going to give you those ratings if you aren't loaning to strong developers.
And is that why in the business model that you've put together for Jumpstart, you are specifically a non-regulated lender?
Very much. We are privately supported, and we don't have those regulations that Valley Green Bank and other banks have. Valley Green Bank, even as a community bank, wasn't able to do a lot of the loans that we're able to do as Jumpstarters. As Jumpstarters, we are specifically looking to finance first, second, third projects that local residents have. As a Jumpstart loan program, we are able to provide relatively small loans. Our average loan right now is $122,000. A lot of banks won't do loans under 500 or $1 million. As the Jumpstart loan program, we're able to do relatively messy loans, meaning acquisition construction loans that need a lot of hand-holding, that need a lot of inspections, and a lot of banks don't want to get into that. So we're specifically looking to do the loans that banks don't want to do.
Is the mechanism that you use that you have a master loan that goes to Jumpstart from a traditional bank, and then you take that master loan and you parcel it out to the individual projects that you are comfortable with?
Yes, basically we're using lines of credit that either come to me and then I hand those over to Jumpstart Loan Program, or they go directly to the Jumpstart Loan Program. So we're currently getting financing from a local nonprofit called LISC, the Reinvestment Fund, JP Morgan, and Tri-State Capital Bank.
And you provide servicing, the loan origination, and underwriting, and other services for those banks, in effect. Is that the way the model works?
Yeah, basically. We have 2.5 staff who are incredibly efficient and effective, and they help Jumpstarters through the process. We have done $50 million in loans over the past 8 years. It's a little over 400 loans.
That's a terrific record. And is the model that you've adopted for Philadelphia the same model that you're exporting to other locations?
That's correct. We have put together what we call a how-to guide to help organizers around the country put together the same or similar loan program as we have done. But each Jumpstart program is separately run and separately administered. So some of them are using different models. For example, Jumpstart Norristown has connected with a local bank and they're feeding their Jumpstart loans through that bank. So they're not putting together their own source of funding. Jumpstart Kensington, on the other hand, is working with JP Morgan, and they are providing the funding for that program.
Okay. And in terms of the the capacity that you have, if we had the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority in existence, or even better, the public bank, as a source of financing, would that be beneficial to the Jumpstart program?
Yeah, absolutely. We are able to charge lower than typical hard money lending rates, particularly because the reinvestment fund and LISC give us money at lower than market rates. So if public funding sources can also do that, they can help buy down the rates and encourage local residents to get into real estate development by doing so. My only warning is that by taking public monies, sometimes municipalities, for example, want to put a lot of strings attached to the funds. And if those strings attached slow down the process significantly, it's not going to work, because we need to help our jump starters act as ready, willing, and able buyers. And if they don't look like cash buyers or can't act as quickly as cash buyers, the process doesn't work. Sellers in a strong real estate market are not going to sit on properties for 3, 4, 5 weeks waiting for an appraisal, for example. So public funding needs to respond to that and needs to allow us to move quickly.
So speed, flexibility, and agility are important.
Well said.
In terms of the program, you provide a sort of a preview of the projects that you're financing, because the entrepreneurs, that are maybe startup folks, have gone through your program, and in part of what happens in your program is that the prospects for their projects are reviewed and discussed within the program. So there's sort of a pre-approval process.
Yeah, somewhat. We're really providing the training in our program. We have a 16-hour training program. We then assign them a mentor if and when they graduate from the program to help walk them through their first, second, third projects. But ultimately, it's up to the Jumpstarter to get their own project done. So while there's some hand-holding involved in our loan program, it is up to the Jumpstarter to get their project done. We're not going to do it for them. We're not going to be able to do it for them. But those are the type of advantages that we offer that a traditional bank cannot offer.
Well, folks who have not gone through the Jumpstart program can also receive financing, but at a half-point premium.
That's correct.
And
so
that accommodates.
I was going to say typical borrowers who have not gone through the Jumpstart training program are going to be a little more qualified, but yes, they will pay a half-point higher.
If there was similar training at, say, the Enterprise Center or some of the other facilities around town, would they also be charged the extra half point, or would that qualify?
No, all the Jumpstart grads in Philadelphia, which is currently 6 neighborhoods, receive that half point incentive.
So it's a perk of being part of the club.
That's right. It's good to be a graduate. We are currently in Germantown, which is the program I head up, Nicetown, Tioga, Kensington, West Philly, Southwest Philly, and what we call North Philly West, which is mostly Strawberry Mansion and Brewery Town.
So we regard you as a social entrepreneur, and that do you feel that the folks who are part of the Jumpstart program are also social entrepreneurs in a sense?
Yeah, I would say what we have done with Jumpstart is I show them a different way of doing real estate development. You know, when I got into it 37 years ago, even my friends, you didn't talk about what you did. Everything was a trade secret. What we are trying to do is show people a way where they can collaborate, they can share information, they can help each other. And I think as a result, we are bringing up a whole another group of real estate developers that are doing things differently than how it's been done in the past.
Where are these folks coming from? There are two strategies that these startup folks can follow. One is it's a flipping strategy in terms of adaptive reuse. They acquire a property that's distressed or in need of work. They do upgrades to the property and then they sell it at a higher price. That's one strategy. The other is that they do the same thing, but they hold it and build a portfolio for themselves. How do those different strategies work? And do some of these people that you're working with go with one strategy as opposed to another? Is it something that people are comfortable with because they have an experience in the construction industry, or they've been have an experience as a realtor? What's the vibe of these folks?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and I wish we had another half hour to discuss it. But essentially, what you're talking about is what we call buy and flip and buy and hold. So when people do buy and flips, we don't even check their credit because I don't care what their past credit history is. They pay us back if and when they sell the house. A buy and hold, we do check credit on because I need to know that they can refinance the house after they have bought it, renovated it, and rented it out to a tenant. To be honest, I encourage jump starters to get into buy and holds because by doing so, they can build up a portfolio and have a nice cash flow, which will help them acquire wealth locally over time. But regardless of my advice, most of our graduates get into buy and flips. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of people don't have good credit, but they still want to get into real estate development. So they're forced to do buy and flips because they won't be able to refinance their projects with banks.
So with either of these strategies, from Jumpstart's point of view, it's a short-term financing for the period of time it takes essentially to acquire, upgrade, and sell the property or refinance the property.
That's correct. And we help introduce our jump starters to traditional banks and to credit unions when they do a buy and hold so that they can refinance. But a lot of our graduates use credit unions because they have been more flexible, they're more attentive to small developers.
So with the experience that you've had, $50 million turning over, fairly rapidly, what has been your bad debt experience?
We always have borrowers who pay slow. People get into difficult situations. They might be on their second or third contractor because their first or second one screwed them over. It happens. Um, but we have had zero foreclosures to date, which is kind of amazing because these are the types of loans that banks don't want to do, and regulators don't want them to do it because they're too risky. So we take a lot of pride that we've been able to work with our borrowers. We've been able to help them finish their projects and move on, and leading to no foreclosures to date.
Would you say that the traditional banks are misassessing the risk, um, or do you think there's a greater ability or willingness to do workouts on your part, or what do you attribute that disparity, the perception of the traditional banks and your actual experience?
Well, you already answered my question, and it's both of those things. One is they are misassessing the risk. I believe lending to local residents and showing them the way is less risky than banks think it is and regulators think it is. And secondly, we have a relationship with a lot of these people. And unfortunately, banks are not allowed to have that relationship. There needs to be an arm length transaction. We can get more involved with our borrowers than traditional banks can.
There's a lender liability problem that they encounter that you don't?
Yeah, I would say it's the regulators that say, do not get involved. Even as a board member, I was not able to get involved with staff decisions, with borrowers. It needs to be kept separate. We don't have that problem. I can call a borrower and say, hey, let me talk you through the problems that you're having. We will bring them in for office hours. We will go out to their site and help answer questions for them when we need to, when they need us to.
So, Ken, what do you think is the potential for a jumpstart approach for solving some of these persistent, difficult problems that we have in Philadelphia of inadequate housing stock for affordable housing, problems of homelessness, of lack of ability for home ownership? What do you think the potential is for this kind of a program if it had the backing of, let's say, the financial authority?
Yeah, again, the financial authority could be helping to pay down our interest rates if they're willing to loan low interest to us, which would then encourage local residents to build their wealth locally to remove blight from their neighborhoods. It could be very powerful. We exist in what I call middle neighborhoods, where by renovating, we are producing what is called NOAH, naturally occurring affordable housing. So we're not in the hot neighborhoods where housing is really expensive. We're in these middle neighborhoods that if we take a vacant, deteriorated single family home and renovate it, it is by definition going to be affordable.
This is not a gentrification program.
Yeah, we don't want gentrification. We want slow, steady growth, not fast, explosive growth.
Great. Well, Ken, we always like to leave our guests with the last word, so we've got about a minute. You have anything you want to say or add to what we've discussed so far?
Well, I would just say if folks are interested in Jumpstart Germantown or Jumpstart Philly, or maybe they love the idea of the Jumpstart program and want someone in the other side of the country to organize one, you can find us at jumpstartgermantown.com, jumpstartphilly.com, or gojumpstart.org, which is a place to find our how-to guide so you can organize your own program. And it's all open source. So we want you to use our information. It's completely free. and we're there for you. We're happy to help you.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. We really appreciate your taking the time to speak with us. And I got so involved in our conversation that I have to apologize to Connie and Stan and people in the chat because I, I just was mesmerized and didn't have. I I'm sorry I didn't get to the people in the chat, but those questions in the chat, if we know how to contact you, we will answer those questions offline. Thank you, everybody, for participating and for being part of the Financing Philadelphia's Future family and listening to the discussion today. And we hope to see you back for the next edition, the next wonderful discussion that we have on financing Philadelphia's future.
Thanks, Peter.